My name is Ormond Mcgill, and I was born in Palo Alto, and most of my life has been here until later years. I became a magician, and it resulted into some worldwide travel. But maybe we better start at the beginning. In Palo Alto, I was interested in magic because my folks had given me a magic set. At that time, there was a magic set called the Mysto Magic, and it was quite an interesting thing. And there was another set called Chemical Magic. So my folks gave them both to me for Christmas, and I learned a few of the things you could do with chemicals, such as the wine and water trick, which is interesting. You have about a number of empty tumblers apparently on a tray and a pitcher of water. And you pour water into one, and then the second glass you pour, it comes out wine. And so you alternate water, wine, water, wine. Finally, you try to take the two glasses of wine and water, pour them back in the pitcher, and they both become a pitcher of water again. And it's a very effective trick. Anyway, that was the first trick I did, just as a kid in grammar school, because they wanted people just before vacation time to do a little entertaining, and some recited poetry and some did a little dance, or whatever the case may be. But I did a little magic. So that got me interested. And at that time, there was advertising in the magazines, what is called the Tarbell Magic Course. And it looks very intriguing to me. So I sent the coupon in, and they sent back the brochure on the course. And my folks thought it was a nice course, but I was just going to high school, so they were a little concerned that by doing that, it might interfere with my work in high school. And they didn't want that to occur, so I said, well, they finally sort of condescended to, let's go talk to the principal about it. The principal was a very nice man with the name of Walter Nichols. He's quite a well-known man in the city, and a very reasonable one. And they said, well, now, we want to be very honest. Our son wants to take this magic course, which will be by mail order. And what do you think? Is that be all right? Would that interfere with you working in high school? And the principal was, he said that magic course will probably be more valuable to him than the courses in high school. I certainly recommend that if he wants to learn to do some of the tricks of the magician, why, go ahead. So that resulted in taking the Tarbell Magic course, which came in every other week, and it was very personally handled by Holland Tarbell, and I enjoyed that very much. And that sort of got me to begin my interest in conjuring. I was also taking a course in high school in the manual training of making various woodworks and various things. So it gave an opportunity to use that training to make some magic tricks. The man in charge had no objection what you were doing as long as you learned to use tools. And so he said, go ahead, make anything you want. So I had a chance to make a few things in the conjuring. And it resulted eventually in me presenting my first full evening show for a high school audience in what was called at that time Pali High. I guess they call it Pali High still. Anyway, we had this, my first attempt at a show of this kind. Naturally, it doesn't run too polished, but it was a good initial beginning. And so from that episode, we went on to other things, and some of the local clubs like Kiwanis and Rotarian, I got invited to do a few things at their noon meetings, and that was fun. And just gradually, magic sort of became my interest. And so for all these years, I've sort of done magic shows. I also combine them with hypnotism, but that also is another story. But that's the way I got into magic, and it still holds me in its interest, because once you get inoculated about what they call...
So, am I to understand that you you took the Tarbell Magic course instead of high school?
No, I went to high school, but I took the Tarbell Magic course at the same time. But it didn't seem to bother one, but bother the other. The high school wasn't anything very complicated. Some homework, a little bit, but not too much. I was never very good at the mathematical courses, but the man was very reasonable. He had me come in after class. He said, you know, some people have certain talents that they are very efficient with, and others have things they don't do well. He says, you'll never be much of a mathematician. So I would recommend that instead of you spending your time going through all of this course, like I teach, algebra and so forth, and trigonometry and geometry, why don't you do what you want to do? That was very reasonable. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'd like to study some art, take some art courses. He said, well, you're perfectly welcome to. You're not required to take my course particularly, if it was going to be useful to you. But you learned your basic arithmetic, well, all you'll use anyway most of your life. Just addition and subtraction and division. So you don't have to go through all these other things unless you want to. But some people just love that type of thing, but it isn't for you. So I followed his advice, and I didn't go on beyond algebra. I didn't go into the geometry and so forth. So I took some art courses, which I enjoyed, and I liked manual training. That was nice. So that was it in high school. But I went through high school. I got in at 1927 and graduated in 1931. And then I went down to San Jose State.
What did you take there?
3,000 students there at that time. Now there must be 30,000 students. Mm. Become a university. Now, there was a teacher's college at that time. The main training was to train teachers. And it was all right. I met Dr. Yates there, the psychology lady who was interested in hypnotism. She invited me to attend some of her classes in psychotherapy. Didn't call it hypnotherapy because that wasn't the word then anyhow. It was psychotherapy. But she said, I invite you to take my course, and you can see all this going on, huh? Mm-hmm. But you don't want this stuff. No, go ahead. That's just conversation. Anyway,
No, I think I would...
Well, I guess, as I said, I went to San Jose State in 1931, and I stayed through the first year, and I stayed through the second year, and this psychologist lady, Dr. Dorothy Hazelton Yates, had written a number of books, and she was assigning different assignments to the members of her class. And it was sort of an advanced class that I was specialized, but she thought that I would enjoy that, since I majored in psychology anyway. So she said, I want you to do hypnotism. Take that as your assignment. So I did that. And that was kind of tied it in nice. And I had some nice private sessions with her and got to know her quite well. And she wrote a number of books on the subject. The first book she wrote on was called Psychological Racketeers. And then she wrote a book called Psychology You Can Use, which were interesting. And she was writing another book on psychology for older people, how to motivate your life, how to keep going, and so forth. And she was writing about how you could be safe when you did everything and so forth. But anyhow, she had a bad habit of dozing off to sleep when she was talking. And she had her manuscript all ready to send back to the publisher on psychology for old people. And she went to sleep while she was driving a car, and she ran onto a window store with the car. She wasn't hurt, but it knocked her out. They took her over to the hospital, but it was such a frustrating thing. It was too much, so she just went on. He just died. So anyway, that's my story with Dr. Yates, which she was a good friend, and I always liked her a lot. Well, it is, because this is in my autobiography, you know.
Oh.
Yeah. You got a copy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, anyway, the way I happened to get into hypnosis, or take an interest in it, was primarily I was doing some magic shows around, and I saw an ad in town that there was going to be a performer of psychology, or he called it a seance's suggestion. He didn't use the word hypnotism because Palo Alto at that time had a grandmother clause in their town that gypsies were going around, and gypsies were kind of people that would say, "I'll tell you a fortune," and they go in the house and they would kind of take things and steal things. So they wanted to get rid of that racket in Palo Alto. So they put a clause through that there'd be no gypsies, there'd be no fortune telling, and they included the word hypnotism. No hypnotism in town. There was no, and didn't make any sense much, but it was just sort of a blanket thing to keep out anything of that nature. So as a result of that fact, this man came into town and he didn't advertise a hypnotic show. He called it a psychology of suggestion. So I naturally was interested in that. So I went to it was at the Masonic Lodge, which was located on the side street just off University Avenue at that time. And they had an auditorium there. And I went with another friend, I believe, if I recall right. I was probably about maybe a senior in high school at that time. I think around 1932. So anyway, I went into the place and sat down and watched the show. You all know there was a man from Denmark, had a little accent, but he was a very pleasant and informal kind of man, and he said, "Our show tonight will be in two parts. The first part, I'm going to show you a demonstration of what is called contact mind reading, and the second demonstration, we're going to show you what is called the power of suggestion, in which I will ask volunteers to come up and take part in the show." So he said, to begin then, I want someone to come up here beside me and help me on this. So somebody volunteered. It was an audience composed greatly of students of Stanford University's psychology department. So anyway, he said, "Now I want to borrow an object." So he borrowed an object. He said, "Now I'm going to give you this object to the man who would volunteer to stand beside him, and I'm going to be blindfolded, and I'll turn my back so I have no way to see where it's hidden. Take it down in the audience and give it to somebody they put in their pocket, and they come back and stand beside me." And then after they'd done that, he was blindfolded and standing there. The man came up beside him and said, "It's been done. It's been hidden in the audience." Well, he took him by the wrist. He said, "Now just hold in your mind how you want to direct me mentally to find this object." And he was very efficient with this. He began walking down the aisle, and suddenly he stopped, and he turned to the side, and sure enough, he did find the object. But he did it twice. He said, "Now, in my show, I like to give you an explanation of how these things work, because I'm not a magician. I presented as a psychology demonstration of what can be done by using applied psychology. And so I'm going to invite a committee of stage of about six people, and I'll show you how you can develop the skill. So when he asked for volunteers, mostly college kids went up, but I was interested, so I also went up on the stage. I was younger, certainly, of all the group, but everybody seemed to be very friendly. So anyway, he said, now I'm going to perform an experiment with each of you. I'm going to give each of you a little pendulum to hold in your hand. And as you hold it in your hand and you think of movement, you'll find that there's an unconscious response will occur in your muscle of your arm, and the pendulum will sway the way that you are thinking of it. So just hold it there, and each one had one. It was just a little fish weight on the end of a piece of thread. And as they all aligned, he said, now concentrate on it swaying back and forth. And don't try to move it. Keep your arm as still as you can, but just mentally think of it moving back and forth, because this is an unconscious response of the muscle of the body. It is called, in psychology, idiomotor action. So anyway, one by one, we all did this as a group, and we watched everyone. Some got it better than others, but I found I could do it quite readily. And then he said, now let's change our thought from back and forth to a circle. We'll go around the circle. So we did that. And then he said, now we're going to show you how you can transmit a thought in your mind to your body. So he had to stand up one by one, and he stood behind them. And he said, now close your eyes and think of falling backwards. And that will catch you. He said, but you just be relaxed. Just let your body respond as it wants to. And he gave some suggestions of slowly you're beginning to coming back. And he caught the person one by one. And finally I volunteered, of course. We all did on the stage, and I fell over backwards. He said, well, now that you learn how to get that feeling of what the sensation is, we're going to use that to find a hidden object in the audience. Who wants to volunteer? Well, I popped right up right away. I want to try it. And he had no objection, so he said, fine. So he said, well, what you're going to do now, I want you to do exactly what you just did. As I gave you suggestions of falling backwards, you could feel the impulse of moving in that direction. Is that correct? And I responded, yes, that's what it was. So I went down the audience, and I stood with him. He blindfolded me. Said, all right, now I'm going to take your hand, and I'm going to think of where this object is. First of all, let's get an object. So it happened in this case to be a comb. And he said, he gave it to somebody. He said, now put it down. Take the comb and put it down the aisle. But you be sure and let me know where it is. Because I'm going to concentrate on this young man here, finding the object. So a fellow took it and put the comb down the audience, and I think he put it in the breast pocket of somebody's suit on the aisle. It wasn't too difficult, but it was down the aisle. A lot of people there, maybe about 300 or so, in that Masonic Lodge room, and it had a stage. It worked out fine. So anyway, he said, now I know where the object is, but I'm going to think about it, how you're supposed to move to go down the aisle. And your movement will be just exactly the same feeling that you had when you did the falling backwards up on the stage. Do you understand? Of course I understood. So he took my hand and said, now I'm going to lead. Nah, I want you to lead me. I'm not going to lead you. I'm going to just lag behind. But I'll hold your wrist, and you just go as you feel. Well, I just began to feel the sensations of how I should go. I walked over back and forth, and I felt, no, I feel the best way is to go straight ahead. So I went straight ahead, and I went down. Suddenly I felt an impulse to stop. Very, very tangible thing. And first time I ever tried this, so it was a new experience for me, but it was quite interesting. And so I stopped, and he said, now we are going to have it down to the fine work. I want you to hold your head out and let it move what direction it wants to go. Just the same as your body did. And I found my hand moving over to the right side. So I said, all right, now where do you want to go? And I felt my hand want to go down, 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 and I went right in the pocket and found the cone. And the audience was very pleased, and he was very pleased that he had demonstrated how the mind can make a thought transfer itself into the response of the body unconsciously, and it can be used for quite a striking demonstration. So that was my first experience with hypnotism, and I got very interested in it. And then his show went on into phenomena of suggestion, which was quite interesting too. But anyway, I sent away to Johnson Smith and Company, which back in those years was selling a lot of things in the way of jokes and trinkets, but they had some magic tricks also. And that little book on hypnotism, which sold for 10 cents. So I set it a dime. I got the little book. The little book gave some sort of ideas about how you could do the experiment of falling over backwards and hand locking and a few things like that. And that's the way I got interested in the subject, and it became more or less part of my show, and I suppose I really have put more attention on that field even than I have on the field of conjuring.